Olivia Courtney. I'm a veteran homeschool mom and business owner at As We Walk Along the Road. And today I want to share with you a great resource for your struggling reader. I love all things reading. If you've checked out anything at As We Walk Along the Road, you'll know that I love literature-based homeschooling. Because I love everything to do with reading, I sometimes get the question from moms, what can I do if my child isn't reading yet? Should I worry that they're not reading yet? How can I intervene to help them? Now, my first answer to that question is to slow down and not stress. Because even though our traditional schools have set up this expectation that kids will read by first grade, that's not really developmentally appropriate for all kids. It is usually okay if your child isn't reading in first grade or maybe even in second grade. So the first caution I would give you is don't jump to the conclusion that there's a problem right away. There might not be a problem. In my own children, I have quite a range of when they became competent, fluent readers. My oldest child honestly can't remember not being able to read. She was putting words together and then sentences together by the time she was 4 years old. And I can distinctly remember her being able to read even chapter books when she was 5. So she was a very, very early reader. I was a very early reader. I cannot remember a time that I couldn't read. So when my oldest child did the same thing, I thought, okay, this is what's going to be normal. Then along came child 2, and he was a little bit later reader. He could sound out some blends and put some sounds together when he was 5, but he wasn't really a fluent reader until maybe 6 or so. My third child was about the same. She followed the same path as child number 2. And then came child number 4. This child, when she began what would have been her second grade year if we were in traditional school, she couldn't even reliably say all of the sounds for all of the letters. And I was beginning to worry, having been a teacher in a traditional school myself, and I was a special education teacher and an elementary education teacher. I was beginning to get a little bit concerned, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna give it this school year, and if she still seems to be struggling, it might be time to intervene and start doing something. By the end of her second grade year, she was reading chapter books. She just needed time to be developmentally ready to read. So I know, based on my experiences with my own kids, as well as the many, many children I've taught throughout teaching in a traditional school, teaching in homeschool co-ops, I know that reading readiness can really fluctuate. There's no magic age at which your child should be reading fluently and independently. With that said, how will you know if there's a problem? And my answer to moms who ask this is usually if your child is beginning to get frustrated by their inability to read, and it is really starting to hamper learning other subjects because your child can't read independently, or your child is in some kind of class at a co-op and they're beginning to notice that they can't read while other peers their same age can read. If this starts to become a problem for your child, then it may be time to intervene to help a struggling reader. And there are lots of ways you can do that. I would always say to read aloud to all of your kids, but it is especially beneficial for your struggling readers. If you can't or don't want to read aloud for some reason, then you can also get audiobooks. So your struggling reader can still have access to great books if you're reading aloud or if you're letting them have an audiobook. But if you want to help them become a more independent, fluent reader, one of the best approaches for struggling readers is the Orton-Gillingham approach. This approach is very systematic, very sequential, very structured, and it really helps readers to connect sounds with letters and letter groups. It is a method that is taught in a very structured way. So if you use an Orton-Gillingham program, you're going to have very detailed instructions. Do this, then do this. And you're going to follow those instructions very explicitly. I've been reviewing a reading program that uses the Orton-Gillingham approach, and it is one that I think could be very beneficial for your struggling reader. So I want to share with you today a little bit about the Pride Reading Program. And I'm going to let you take a look at some of the materials and the method that you would use as you do this Pride Reading Program with your struggling reader. I think that this could be very beneficial if you are seeing that your child is really falling behind, not being able to read independently and becoming frustrated by that, or having other academic areas affected by the inability to read independently. So come along and let me share with you a little bit about the Pride Reading Program today. The Pride Reading Program is a 100% scripted, open and grow program developed for parents who want to teach reading, writing, spelling, and comprehension in the most effective and easiest way possible. One of the concerns I often hear from homeschool moms whose kids are struggling with reading is, I'm not sure where to start. I don't have any training in helping a struggling reader. The Pride Reading Program doesn't require long training sessions, and you don't have to develop your own lesson plans. Everything is already laid out for you step by step. And when you purchase the program, you also get a short course that explains exactly how the program works and how to use it effectively. There are several parts to the resources you'll receive when you use the Pride Reading Program. The online teaching guide tells you what skills to teach, when and how to teach them, and gives you all the words, sentences, and activities you need to do with your student. The Student Workbook includes decodable word lists, sentences, and stories that allow the student to apply, reinforce, and master new concepts. The pages in the Student Workbook contain words, sentences, and stories. They have quick progress checks to determine your student's progress. There's spelling paper, picture pages, graphic organizers for comprehension and writing practice, fluency practice pages, and word games. The Pride sound cards are used throughout the program to introduce letters, sounds, and to review skills. The Pride letter tiles are color-coded for each letter sound concept, and they are used throughout the program to learn sounds, blending, and word building. The cards are color-coded similarly to the sound cards. And using these letter tiles is a great hands-on multisensory way to practice associating letters and sounds. The Pride Activity Kit includes a dry erase board and black and red pens, as well as an eraser, a reading tracker, and a game die. You will use these items during instruction and for review games. Every concept that you teach your student is divided into 3 sections. You'll present the concept through an introduction lesson. You'll practice it along with previously taught concepts in a practice lesson, and then you'll do a reinforcement lesson that is a comprehensive review. All of the steps that you need for each lesson are detailed in the online lesson plans that you will receive as part of the program. So here are a few of the steps that you'll cover as you do your lessons with your student. Sound card reviews help your student review all of the previously learned concepts as a warm-up. The student looks at the card and gives the letter, name, and sound. The picture pages in the student workbook introduce a new concept to the student, and they have a visual that's going to help the student connect and remember the new letter and sound. Students will practice the new concept with skywriting. They'll say the sound and then write the letters in the air while saying the sound. This helps them remember the formation of the letters and to connect them to the sounds. The next step is blending drills. The parent turns over cards from the sound card set to make nonsense words which the student can sound out. The back of the student workbook is designed to be used with the letter tiles that are part of the Pride Reading program. Students will use the blank green and white tiles for an activity that involves moving tiles to indicate separate sounds they hear, and they'll also use the tiles to build and manipulate words, blending them together. The student begins a lesson by underlining, linking, dividing, and boxing letters and letter combinations. The parent will have the student read a list of sentences that are decodable and that contain a specific skill the student is working on. They'll read the sentences in their mind, answer a comprehension question about them, and then read the sentence aloud with fluency and expression. Then the student will read a decodable story. The story contains only sounds and concepts the student has already learned. Throughout this process, students are working on vocabulary and comprehension strategies. They'll fill out a graphic organizer for the story, which is going to help develop their reading comprehension skills. In another part of the lesson, the parent will dictate sounds, words, and sentences to the student. The student is going to write the letters, the words, and the sentences and read them back to the parent. Students' reading fluency is assessed by having them read lines of words as quickly and accurately as possible. At the end of each lesson, the student is assessed and should achieve at least 80% mastery to move on to the next lesson. This ensures that the student really is understanding the concepts and sounds they're learning. Because of how structured and sequential the Pride Reading program is, and because of how many elements there are in this program, it might seem daunting at first. But this really is a program you can just pick up and run with. When you purchase the Pride Reading program, you'll get a short training program that tells you exactly how to use all of the elements in this approach. It's going to tell you what they are and how to teach them. And your online lesson plans detail for you all of the steps that you need to take as you're teaching each new concept and sound. The Pride Reading program is an excellent resource for you to check out if you're looking for help for your struggling reader. The link to visit Pride Reading program and learn more is listed in the video description. You can check it out and learn more about the Pride Reading program and get help for your struggling reader.